we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Terminally Happy podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Jardine. Very excited to be here with you today. I like to say that my only qualification is that I currently have a glioblastoma brain tumor. I have been given a terminal diagnosis of 1 to 3 years. I don't know if that qualifies me to host a podcast, but whether it does or it doesn't, I'm here. I've had a lot of people reach out to me and want to have conversations, and I told my two friends here, Derek and Tashina, that the reason I'm doing this is that we could scale this easier if we record our conversations, and they were so nice to join us today. So without further ado, let me introduce you to two very dear friends of mine. Before I introduce them, I want to say that we did our first podcast yesterday, and it was amazing, the good, wonderful feedback we got. A lot of that feedback were individuals just thanking us for our positivity and our happiness. And I have never met anyone, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, more happy than this couple we're going to talk to today. I met them via church. They moved in and they came in smiling, almost like they're coming into a party. And I remember like it was yesterday. I was like, man, those two people are happy. And so I liked them from the beginning. So Tashina, Derek, thank you for being here. If it would be okay with you, I'd like the audience just to get to know who you are as people before we dive into some of the other stuff. So I don't know who to turn it over to, but could you tell us your story, kind of where you both came from, how you met, maybe even what you do, what motivates you, what excites you, kind of all that good stuff so the audience can get to know you better.
Sure. And thanks for the introduction. That was really sweet of you to say those great things about us.
I mean, every word of it. We'll dive more into some things we've done since then. I have some other good memories with you guys.
I'll kind of give our introduction because I think you'll want to hear from Tashina more after. But so our introduction goes, we met at BYU, Idaho. It was beginning of the semester dance. I had originally gone with my sister, but ended up ditching my sister at the dance and was just hopping around watching people dance or dancing.
Yeah.
And and there was this girl who was a really good dancer, and I go over to her, I start talking to her. She introduced me to her cousin, and then this guy started playing these weird dominance games with me, and I kind of pushed her away. But I figured I had enough information that I'd find her later. And
Sheena, was that a brush off?
No,
here, meet my cousin. Is that kind of what you did?
No, it was. I met a lot of people that night,
okay.
And apparently my cousin was notable of introducing to
it. But I met up with my sister later and researched every name of all the information that I'd gotten from her, like the school she graduated from and where she's from and all that stuff. So I was searching for her all over online, Facebook and the school directory, and I just couldn't find her. And so classic Cinderella story, girl got away, and I got this little bit of information. And then 3 days later in a science foundations class, 80 people, the professor goes, all right, everybody's introducing themselves. And the third person to stand up goes, hi, my name's Tashina, I like to dance. And I'm like, there's, the angels start singing. And birds.
It was glowing, yeah.
And so I was trying to create a non-awkward way to talk to her again. And so I figured everybody sits in the same spot every day. So if I want to get her attention, I'll just sit in her spot. So wherever she sat the class before, I would sit there, and then she'd sit somewhere else because Tashina's really social. So the next class, I would sit there, and then she'd sit somewhere else. And I did this for 6 weeks, chasing her around, trying to create a non-awkward
I had no idea this was happening. Okay.
You didn't notice it was the same guy every day? Why is he in my seat? But hey, Derek, props on understanding human behavior. I like that.
Trying to create a good way to meet somebody again. So anyway, 6 weeks later, I got to go up to her. I said, hey, I don't know if you remember me. We met at the dance. You seemed really fun. I'd love to hang out with you sometime. Can I get your number? I got her number. And there's a lot more to that story, but
That's how I met him, was in science. He met me at a dance.
There you go. Hey, that is a cool story. There's so many facets to that I'd like to dive into, but I probably won't. But that is awesome. That is a really, really cool meeting story. So that was how long ago?
That was 2016.
2016?
We got married in 2017 in Idaho Falls, Idaho. And then right after college, Derek accepted a job out in Kansas City, which is where we met you, with Honeywell. And now we just were able to move out to Tucson, Arizona. And now he's working with Raytheon. So that's kind of where we've hopped around.
Well, timing's perfect because it's colder than crap out here.
Oh no.
Good time to be in Arizona.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to date myself, but if I would have met a girl back in my day at a dance, and didn't get the necessary information, we didn't have the technology to search people up like that. So I won't say my age, but that was not a possibility. So cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. I know you have so much more to share because I know some other parts of your story. But if it's okay with you guys, just for the sake of time, we'll dive into the more serious topic. So Tashina, I do not remember exactly when, because all time blends together now, but I do remember hearing the news of your cancer and it hitting me pretty hard. Tell me, kind of start at the beginning of your cancer journey, and share that with the audience if you don't mind.
Sure. So in about 2021, beginning of 2022 is when I was having some serious migraines, headaches, and head pounds. I just assumed it was, allergies. It could have been the season changing.
Migraine Monday.
Yeah, I called it Migraine Monday after not working over the weekend and looking at a computer on Monday. I just thought that that's what it was. And Derek's like, you know what? It's escalating. Let's go ahead and just go get you checked out. We went like 9 a.m. to the urgent care, who sent us to an ER and from there they saw that there was a growth, and that was in May of 2022.
Okay.
Once they found that there was a growth, they admitted me into the hospital and we had a craniotomy, and they said that the cyst was the size of a baseball and the tumor was the size of a half racquetball worth of material that they pulled out. So my brain was shifted all over and all around.
For anybody that's watching this, be able to see this, the MRI from the first time around. Shake it.
Holy.
The black hole is the cyst.
I can see that pretty well.
So you can see my brain was shifted, which, makes sense for why I was having vertigo. I forgot to say I was having vertigo issues and those head pounds and headaches. Now, once they did that craniotomy, the doctor thought it was not cancerous. They sent it off to pathology. Derek actually got a job in Georgia that we had accepted. We were just kind of waiting to put in our 2 weeks notice. And once we were cleared to put in that 2 weeks notice is when we found out that it was cancer. So pathology had taken quite a bit of time. Fast forward to July, that's when we found out it was cancer. They did another MRI. It turned out that the tumor had grown back and that it was already too big to do radiology or radiation. Oh, wow. So he said, let's get you scheduled for another surgery, but the surgery was a little bit postponed until August. And it was about mid-August that we went in the second craniotomy, and it had grown back bigger than it was before. So what did they do? I know that you've probably heard, but in some brain surgeries, they wake you up to make sure that they don't hit any critical pathways. So I was awake during the second surgery, and
you were awake the whole time, or they woke you up in the middle of it?
In the middle of it. So they opened me up while I was under. And then once I was cleared to wake up, the anesthesiologist woke me up and was just talking to me. And once I started fumbling words or I didn't start making sense, that's when he'd known he'd gone too far, because he ended up taking out my left frontal lobe. That's how aggressive this tumor was. I'm good. When you take out frontal lobes, a lot of people, the side effects include motor function disability, change of personality, bipolarism, unable to correct your feelings and emotions and social cues. And miracles happened to where I didn't experience any of those. So I believe in God, and I believe that God had a huge hand in me recovering and with the doctor, because none of that happened. We then started radiation, and I was super fatigued to begin with. I couldn't even get off the couch by myself. And then when we started radiation, it just felt like it exponentially grew. But over time, as I healed and as radiation was coming to an end, I felt like we kind of plateaued with both. And I was cleared to go back to work. I was getting MRIs about every 3 months, and everything was looking great, clear, amazing. So once our intervals for MRIs got switched every 6 months, our doctor said we were cleared to move if we wanted to. So that's when Derek started looking at different jobs. That's how we found Tucson, and we were cleared. So we came on out here and immediately got registered as an inpatient with Mayo. And I had a great MRI in September, fantastic, clean, nothing to really worry about. However, on Thanksgiving, so this last Thanksgiving, we were driving up to his family in Utah, and all of a sudden I couldn't repeat words back to Derek. And then my right hand went numb and my face went numb. And I'm like, Derek, I think I just had a mini stroke. So we pulled over. It turned out to just be a silent seizure.
Yeah.
And we went to the U of U, who sent us right back to Mayo. And the Mayo found 2 new tumors right at the end of November.
Yeah, 3 days after Thanksgiving.
Yep. And so they were able to do another craniotomy. These 2 new tumors were in 2 new places. So instead of being left frontal, it was in left temporal and right frontal. They were able to remove the left temporal, and my right frontal is tomorrow, actually. So,
Oh my gosh.
that being said, we feel like we're still a walking miracle. Everything has happened in perfect timing. We've had some decisions to make, and nothing has ever felt right. And we just trust those feelings. And little did we know what was ahead of us, right? We didn't know that another 2 tumors would pop up, but they're here, and how grateful we are to be in the situation that we're in, that we can afford it, that we have great support systems and groups and people and neighbors around us, and of course family, and of course God. So that's my story. Stay tuned for what's up next.
Again, you're the epitome for the people I want to talk to about being in a, potentially a low spot, but yet you're just smiling and laughing. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that mindset and how much it inspires me. You sparked my curiosity with about 10 different things you said. So let me see if I can pull them all back. The first one, you sparked my curiosity. I thought that I had heard that once they go into your brain, they usually don't go back in. Now, is it because you've had tumors pop up in different locations, which is why they continue to open you up? Is that the reason for that?
Yeah, I've also heard rumors of that as well, that they don't really like to go in multiple times to the same location, but it was a very aggressive tumor. Okay. And then the other thing is you can only take out so much brain, and your bone can only regrow, and your skin can only heal as much as it can, right? It turns into that scar. So all of those kind of combined is the reason why I've been told they don't like to go in multiple times. But I've also heard stories of people who've had 14 brain surgeries and taken. So kind of weigh the aggressiveness, or I guess you could say how terminal things are for that other person versus grade 3, grade 4.
I think location too has a big, because I was asking the surgeon about that very thing. Someone told us, there's a 3 limit. 3 times is the limit. And I was talking to the surgeon, and the surgeon was saying he goes, I don't know where you get that. He goes, as long as it's safe, we'll keep doing what's, necessary
to keep you healthy.
Yeah. And part of mine being different, and I like to share just different stories on here. So people, they told me that they would not go back in on me because of location, right? So it's on my motor strip, and they said they got as much as they could without paralyzing me. And if they tried it again, I would definitely be paralyzed. So that's my story about going in multiple times. Well, Tashina, gosh, talk to me if you would, and then we'll give some time to Derek so you can take a deep breath. But maybe you're such a stinking happy person, which is something I love about you. And at the same time, I would call myself the same. And yet I know that for the first time in my life, I experienced some pretty deep depression for that first month or so after my craniotomy. Um, can you talk us through your, you know, your kind of your emotional well-being throughout this process that you just explained to us?
Yeah, well, I would say the best advice I can give to anyone is it's okay to talk about the bad,
Yeah.
that it's okay to express your feelings out loud, because the more you keep it held in, the bigger of an explosion it's going to be when it comes out. So there were definitely days when I broke down crying, realizing, what my future holds with Derek. And if I didn't have those moments set apart just to get the dirty talk out,
Yeah.
the sad things, the reality that could happen, that's when I would have fallen into the slump.
I want to interject because there were times, I think a lot of times it happens when you're alone with your thoughts.
That's true.
When
Yes.
you're by yourself and you got actually, you embrace it internally of what actually is happening. I don't know why, you just go to the darkest of places.
Yeah.
That are just like uncomfortable to talk about, that I don't even think I could express, just how the fears, the worries that you have. And a lot of times, I know even Tashina and I talk about this, we would bottle them up for each other. She was trying to be strong for me, I was trying to be strong for her and what was going on. And there was a time where we both kind of realized that we were falling into a somewhat of a depression or a worry of the what ifs.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we developed our way of dealing with this. We would go on these walks and we would say, okay, we'd set a timer. We'd say for the next 15 minutes, we're going to talk about, these awful fears that we're bottling up inside, and just be honest with each other about them and talk about them and bring them out into the open and poke them and all that stuff. And they were hard conversations, and they were very raw, and they were very scary.
Real.
But putting them out there and being able to poke them also allowed us to kind of put them to bed and push them aside and saying, okay, we know what those are. We know that they exist, but because we're not, holding them in, they're not overwhelming us. And so that was something that worked really well for us to help stay emotionally stable, was just to have a place and we would limit ourselves, because if you sit in that place a long time, it gets real ugly real fast.
Yeah,
but to limit ourselves and to just say, you have to, admit the potential of some realities. And so that was just our safe place to go. And then there were times we're like, all right, 15 minutes is up, we got to stop. Like, we got to change topic. We got, get back to life.
I'm so glad you found that. And I think, that's a golden nugget for anybody watching this. Just something that worked for you guys that might work for someone else. I'll have to talk to my wife. Maybe we'll call them the Pokem walks or whatever you called that. Let out some of the beasts, poke them around a little bit, and then, put them back in and just enjoy each other's company. It is some fantastic, really good advice. So thanks for sharing that. Derek, so this podcast, in my opinion, is as much for those that have been diagnosed as well as the caregivers or those that love that individual. We obviously know how much you love Tashina just based on how you pursued her. But maybe you could start at kind of the same starting point where she started to explain her symptoms and then ultimately her diagnosis, and kind of tell us that, as her husband, what thoughts were going through your head? What were some maybe ways that you were dealing with those thoughts, and how did you support her as well as you did?
Well, let's go. So back when she was getting diagnosed, so she was having these headaches pretty consistently. The unique part is that I don't know, I tend to track everything. I don't know if it's just the curse of being an engineer or what,
Yeah,
but
right. That doesn't surprise me, by the way.
I mean, when she's taking medications consistently and they're consistently not working,
Yeah.
and then it reached to the point where we thought it was still a migraine. We started reaching out to other people that we knew that had migraines, my sisters, pretty consistently. And we said, hey, what do you take for migraines? You know, ibuprofen's not cutting it. And my sister recommended Excedrin, which is like the max dose of ibuprofen, Tylenol, and caffeine, like
yeah.
the heavy hitter for migraines. And Tashina was taking the maximum dose you could take in a 24-hour period and that would give her 4 hours of relief of this headache. Oh, wow. And then it would start again and she had to wait 20 hours before she could take it again. That was kind of like my first something's off. And then granted, hindsight's 2020. So looking back, she was having some dizzy episodes where she was just like, I feel like my head's going whoosh. And looking back, we realized that was probably another symptom we didn't realize.
Yeah.
But
don't beat yourselves up too much. I fell off 3 ladders and still didn't realize there was a problem.
That hurts to hear.
Yeah, you would think, well, that's a little dumb. Sorry, keep going.
But so when she started throwing up, I was like, just from what I know, anytime things are escalating like that, it's like, all right, it's time to go, figure out what's going on. But we were also having in the back of mind, well, maybe it's just a stomach bug, or maybe, and the problem with migraines is there's symptoms. Everything's a symptom of a migraine, and all the symptoms of migraines are the same as brain tumors. And no one ever assumes brain tumor. I don't know why anyone would.
Yeah, right.
And so originally what I was thinking, I was like, maybe you have food poisoning and a migraine. Maybe it's just your migraine's crazy. But either way, you need better medication because what we have isn't cutting it.
Right.
And so that's really what took us to urgent care. And urgent care is like, migraines don't last 2 weeks. And we're like, what? Yeah. And then she's like, you really need to go to the ER. We went to the ER and they took an MRI and they were like, oh, well, there's a cyst. And my experience with cysts was like the size of your thumbnail, maybe. Things people get in their wrists or their joints. And so I'm like, are we looking at the right thing? That's what I'm thinking. And then she said, and Tashina was like, well, I just want to go home. Like, I can't sleep in the ER. And I remember she was like, I really don't recommend you leave. She goes, but I can't keep you here, but I'd strongly recommend you don't leave. And then they got an MRI. And then we didn't hear anything back about the MRI. And then that night, at the change of the night doctor, I remember Tashina was like ready to go. She was going to tell him, I'm leaving. I want to go home and get some sleep. My head's killing me.
Yeah.
And in an attempt, I kept telling her, I'm like, I can't help you at home. I'm like, there's people here that can help you. And I'm like, I want to keep you here around the people that can help you. And so, but I could tell Tashina was just like, I'm ready to go home.
My blood was boiling. Let's just say that.
Yeah, there's a guy.
It takes a lot for you to have boiling blood, I would imagine.
Yeah, and there's a guy in another room like moaning, and we're like,
you just can't sleep in the ER.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
So I remember telling the night doctor, I was like, can we just see the pictures? I'm like, see the MRI. And he's like, oh yeah. And he pulls them up. And the picture I just showed was what he showed us. And
that probably hit you like a ton of bricks.
I immediately laid down, I put the IV in the arm, and I was like, help me now.
It was just like shock, because he told us, he's like, yeah, you have a pretty big brain tumor. And that was the first time we had heard tumor.
Yeah.
And so that was like the first shock. And then he told us, he's like, you guys should be getting pretty used to the idea of brain surgery. And that was just like completely floored us.
This is about you.
Anyway, so then he leaves. I think the big question, right? That's like I have no knowledge of brain tumors or anything that's going on. And so that's when Googling starts.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to get more information. And Tashina at that point she wasn't accepting any pain medication until we figured out what it was. And then once we kind of saw what it was, she's immediately like, give me anything. I just need some sleep. And, we kind of got bad news.
Yeah.
So that started probably the most emotionally difficult part for me was Tashina was hopped up on drugs that weren't helping because her pain was pressure. It wasn't actual pain.
Yeah.
But they're just trying to put her at ease. And so Tashina's not with it. And she's starting to talk in circles because that's what meds make you do. But now I don't know. I'm like, well, is she talking in circles because her symptoms are getting worse? Or is it the drugs? And I'm just like talking to the nurses like, hey, what's normal? And they're like, we're not sure. We're going to wait for the neurosurgeon. So the neurosurgeon comes in the next day. And, no offense to them, but they tend to not have great social skills. But for me, it was I had to remind myself, I'm like, I don't care if they're awkward or weird. I work with engineers that are awkward and weird. As long as they're great at what they do, I'm like, they can be as, weird as they want to be.
Yep.
And so, but part of that came with, he comes in the next day and goes, yeah, you need brain surgery. We got to get this removed. He's like, your options, you could go get a second opinion, but he goes, with how fast this is growing, you're going to be back in here in a week with having seizures. And he goes, obviously I can't hold you here, which everyone kept saying. They're like, we can't keep you here, but you can do whatever you want. But he goes, I recommend, we get you in for brain surgery. And he goes, risk for brain surgery. And he rattles them off like one of those medicine commercials you see that are just like, here's all the side effects.
Yeah.
And then he stops, realizing that I think we were overwhelmed. And he looks at me and looks at Tashina and he goes, you guys should have a conversation, and walks out. And that was like, yeah, it's already been an emotional shock. And then he says, here's all the awful side effects that can happen from brain surgery, and leaves. And so I go and I sit down on the bed, and Tashina goes, or I asked Tashina, I was like, so what do you think? And she's like, think about what? Because she's still high as a kite.
Yeah, right.
About what the doctor said. She goes, oh, was he in here? That feels like such a dream. And I'm like, well, let's talk about your dream.
Way to go with the flow there, Derek.
and then she falls asleep. And that was like, emotionally for me, I completely lost it, because that was the point where I was alone and I was making decisions for my wife's health and future that could really impact her negatively. And I was making that on my own. And I was trying to stay strong for Tashina. So I had to leave the room. I went down to my car and I sat there and just cried. And till I could get enough of a grip on myself. And I was able to call one of my sisters that's a nurse. And I was like, just tell me I'm doing the right thing, and just tell me I can trust these people. And that was the hardest part, I think, of all. I mean, we're going into our 4th surgery, and that was still the hardest part, is, having to ask my sister to just tell me I'm doing the right thing for my wife. That I can trust, people that I met an hour ago that are awkward and uncomfortable. So she reassured me that, like, you're doing the right things. You love her. These are professionals. They have your best interest at heart. Even though some people say that, oh, doctors are just in it for the money and all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't think that's fair. I think, doctors, for the most part, are always trying to have your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
And so I remember walking back in and telling the doctors, yeah, we're going to move forward with surgery. We're going to do this.
Yeah.
But emotionally, I think what that did is it started to build a support system, because my sister took that, and one, it strengthened my relationship with my sister a lot. And then she also, seeing the emotional state I was in, reached out to the rest of my family and was like, hey, you guys need to call Derek. He shouldn't be left alone with his thoughts, to those dark places.
Yeah.
And they started calling me, periodically, to make sure that I was never essentially alone during those times.
That hits really heavy with me. In fact, it makes me wonder. I kind of want to have a conversation with my wife, because I don't think I remember a whole lot of the decision process. Ours was very fast, like yours, like, hey, we need to get in there.
Yeah.
I don't remember a conversation with Jamie. So That might be interesting to have with her. Maybe I was drugged up as well. But thanks for sharing that part, Derek. Two things here. Derek, I'm gonna ask Tashina a question, and while I'm asking her, maybe you can think about what those first 2 weeks post-surgery are like, because I'm finding a commonality of talking to individuals that are like right off the big news and wanting to know what to do. And I think that those 2 weeks were so fuzzy for us. So I'd be interested to hear what you have to say. But Tashina, before we hand it over to Derek again, you said something about small miracles that hit home with me. After getting the news that I was given 1 to 3 years to live, my family, and it probably won't surprise anyone, we started praying for miracles. We believe that God is the same today as he was yesterday, and how he will be in the future. We believe he performed many miracles in the past. He loves us just as much as he loved those people back then. So we definitely believed in miracles. And I think since I hadn't put much thought into it, I was just thinking of the big miracle, like heal me, right? And I've noticed it play out a little bit different. And I think you might agree with me just based on what I think I heard you say about 10 minutes ago was instead of one big miracle, I've just seen kind of this miracle after miracle after miracle, really small, right? That kind of just takes you to the next miracle, kind of breadcrumb, walk the trail, follow the breadcrumbs. And that's kind of how it's played out for me. It's kind of each small miracle getting me to the next decision. And then someone reaches out and says something that helps me make that next decision. And was that how, I don't want to lead you to an answer, but is that kind of how it's played out for you? And what can you say more about that?
Yes, yes. However, I would add on to say that we had more miracles leading up to the diagnosis instead of after diagnosis.
Okay.
Leading
Tell
up
me
to it,
more.
we were able to get our finances in line. I grew up in a very poor family, so the subject of money puts me on the edge of a cliff, right?
Yeah.
And Derek has been so patient with me, and we did a personal finance course together. And it's through that we learned how to budget, how to use an HSA that prepared us for surgery number 1. Incredible friendships that were made out of nowhere. It was so easy to connect with these people, and those were the people we reached out to the most for help. Yeah, now after surgery, those symptoms and side effects, I didn't get any of those crazy ones. But once we did get home, I would say the miracles of doctors always checking in, nurses always checking in. They never let us be alone. And I feel like that was a miracle, just to have a good care team. Now, after surgery number 2, craniotomy number 2, the fatigue was unreal. Like, I couldn't even go walk around my apartment. It just hurt my joints. It hurt everything. However, our neighbors, you would, okay, I'll tell you one story and this will be it. We have a neighbor who lived down the hall from us. It was an indoor complex. And she said, however I can help you, just give me a call. And if I'm there, I'm there. And I said, okay. So there was this one time I was weaning off some steroids, which had crazy side effects on my joints. Felt like all my joints were filled with buckets of glass.
Oh,
and I couldn't even put a sheet on my knee. It hurt so bad. We needed to go to the hospital. We just gotten a puppy. It's 3 a.m. and I am outside of myself. We call this neighbor. She goes, hey guys, I'm right outside your apartment. What do you need? And we're like, we need to go to the ER. She helped carry us down to the car. Like, that doesn't happen. That doesn't just randomly happen.
Yeah.
But because we asked for miracles and because we put all of our faith and trust in a God who loves us, who wants the best for us, like, I can't give anybody else credit. It's all lined up so well in the timing and what we received. So that's how I would respond to that.
It's beautiful.
Do you have anything to add?
When it comes to miracles,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with Tashina. A lot of like the financial stuff has been amazing. I mean, it's something measurable, right? Something tangible that we would have been like on our own, we would not have done this. But you know, we had inspired leaders that were like, hey, you should finance or mediate this personal finance class. And then that led us to, you know, we did the class and it tells you to look into the benefits your job has, that, you know, taught us we need to be putting money into an HSA. And then that allowed us to financially be in a position that for us, finances weren't a stress going into it, which was a huge miracle in and of itself.
Yeah.
Because I had just started a job, right? And so right out of college, it's not like everybody has all the money in the world to start worrying about medical.
I know we didn't.
Yeah. So, and then to see like this miracle of our neighbor at 3 a.m. just being literally right outside our door, right when I called, the phone rang once and she was, you know, Derek, what do you need? And, you know, we just appreciate her. And then things from even this surgery, miracles we've seen is right when we moved here, one of my goals was I wanted to go back to school and get my master's degree. And I had applied, gotten accepted into the school, started classes, and then it was just like a bunch of like stop feelings, like stop what you're doing type of feelings. I was stressed out for no reason. I do well in school.
Derek doesn't double think his choices, and we were all both just like, something's not right. Yeah.
Tashina had the wisdom to just be like, you're not like this. Like, this isn't you. And I'm like, I don't know what's up. It just like feels so like terrible and stressful. And she's like, I think you really need to like rethink doing this program. And so we did, and we decided that now wasn't the best time to start master's
That
program.
was in September when everything was fine.
When everything was fine.
And then 2 months later.
Actually, funny enough, you'll appreciate this. We had just read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Oh,
and
good read.
It was a fantastic read. And we did the matrix of important and what's the other? Urgent, right? And we're like, technically this is empowering, but it keeps us from doing everything else in that second quadrant, everything else that's there. And so we're like, this just doesn't seem right. So I dropped out of the program, which was against usually anything I'd ever do.
Yeah.
I was like, completely dropped the program. And then fast forward to now, having this diagnosis and being in the situation we're in, I would have to drop the program anyway. But because my work was paying for my schooling, I would owe them all of that money back for classes, for everything, because I wouldn't be able to finish classes, or I'd be strapped trying to finish classes amidst all of this.
Working classes and taking care of somebody who needs help.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was another like huge miracle that we've been seeing, is that
Still
God's
unfolding.
Yeah, it's still, he's very much involved in our life.
Well, I love that you both noticed that, and that's one of those things that I admire about the two of you is just your strong faith and knowing that he loves us and he's looking out for us. I know he's looking out for the two of you. I was thinking maybe just in closing, if you think about the audience of people that could be watching this, not only those that have been diagnosed, but those that love that individual, friends, family. You mentioned that girl from across the hall that was so willing to help. What's some advice you might give to those that are trying to support a couple like you or an individual that's in this situation? What are some of the things that people have done for you that, because I know I feel bad because I've been in that position quite a bit too, and that's a hard position to be in. You're like, you really do want to help the individual, but you really have no idea how. What advice might you give? Just any last thoughts you have on thinking about who might watch this podcast that loves someone that is going through a similar situation? What could they do? What do you think?
I have ideas.
Go ahead.
Okay. In my mind, one, obviously what everyone always naturally does, first of all, is just offer help. Just say, hey, I'm here for you, whatever you need. That's step one. That's like, everyone's going to do that, I think, naturally. Mm-hmm. I think step two, to somebody just from the outside looking in, seeing the help, is like just asking, are all the basic needs met? Are they taking care of themselves? Do they have food in their pantry, fridge? Are they able to, get to work? Are they able to function normally? And then that will address like maybe a way to help. Or, you know, they say they're going to an appointment. Are they able to get there? Are you able to take them? Do you have time off work? You know, those types of things. Just they say they need to do something, but then do they break down the process and can they actually achieve it? That's probably one. An example of a nurse that did that for me was basically he saw that that first surgery. I was sleeping in the hospital. I didn't know what was going on with my wife. You know, this was all new territory. And this nurse basically was very sweet and looked and saw what I was sleeping in the hospital and all this stuff. And she said, hey, if you're going to take care of your wife, you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself. You know, there's nurses here. Go home and just take a shower. Like, I get you want to be here and all that stuff. She's like, but just go take a shower and come back, take 15 minutes and just make sure you're in a good place and taking care of yourself. Otherwise, you won't be able to take care of your spouse. And just that advice was very impactful for me. Other people, the big one is just someone asking, how can I help? You know, because sometimes, you know, family comes in or, you know, people show up to help, and just asking, you know, you might have in your mind, okay, this is how I'm going to help. But then just asking that question, hey, how can I help you today? And even if they say nothing, then at least, you know, you can keep going with your plan. But if they have something they actually need, they might not ask you because they don't want to inconvenience somebody. So just the question, I think, is very helpful.
Yeah,
I would just
go ahead, Tashina.
I would just add on to that and say there is a difference with somebody who says, let me know what you need versus I can do this for you and I hope I'm the first person you call.
That's true.
Like, just to make it like, I am serious about me wanting to serve you and to help you in any way that I can, so much so that I hope I'm on your number one list, like top of the list, right?
Number one person you call for kid watching, dog watching, for
moving, helping, any of it.
Yeah.
And I would say that was the hugest difference between sincere, real help versus my condolences, not my condolences. What's that word?
What can I do for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or call me if you need.
Exactly.
I like to say intent counts more than technique, right? So don't worry about your words, but just if you go up to that person with just sincere love, whatever comes out of your mouth is going to be the right thing, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, Tashina, you might agree with me, but in our position, being the one that people are wanting to help, I realized by saying no, 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 as much as I said no, or not no, right? We're fine. That's the answer you get. We're fine. I was really doing a disservice to those individuals that genuinely wanted to help, by not giving them the opportunity. I was really taking a gift away from them. So by the end of it, by 2-3 months in, once I finally realized that, I started trying to actually write down stuff like what could I use? Like, I almost had to make up things just so I can give people the opportunity to serve, right? Because people love you and they want to serve you, they want to help. So that was something I learned is, hey, don't rob people of the opportunity. Take a little time and think about, you know, what you could actually use so that you can answer that question honestly, because you know you're going to get it a lot. Just a humorous warning though. Watch it. So I had a dear friend who put together kind of a meal train for us. And so we were getting dinners brought to us nightly, not only by friends, but people we knew from church, but also my company. She reached out to them and they were buying. Anyway, that lined up with my steroid usage and I put on 30 pounds. Like, I've never put on weight ever in my life. And I have pictures I could show you right now where you just crack up. I mean, so anyway, watch the alignment on some of the services people offer you.
Yeah.
Worry and to see your smiles, and I look up to the both of you. In closing, as you think about our audience, is there anything we've left unsaid that you think they could benefit from?
The one thing that I feel like everybody should hear is that anyone going through something like this, like Christ said that I will not leave you comfortless. and that he would be there. And like, you're the person that he's coming to, and he doesn't leave you alone, especially in this time. He is more close to you than ever before. In fact, I would recommend to anybody going through something like this to pray for the people around them, because your prayers are a lot closer to God than I think you realize.
Amen. Amen, my brother. And I'm going to challenge the audience, anyone listening to this, to pray for Tashina tomorrow, as she goes back under. I'll definitely throw out an extra prayer for the both of you tonight. And
Thank you.
I know he's looking out after you, just like you said, Derek. So hopefully your heart will be comforted that you know everything will go well.
Thank you.
Thank you too so much. I really appreciate you. Best of luck. Genuinely, let me know if I can do anything for you. I know we're miles away from each other now, but I'll be down there in a few weeks, so I'll check in on you.
That'd be great. It's so good to see your face.
Good to see you. Thank you so much. Thanks for all your words today. I know they're going to bless a lot of people.
Thank you. Thanks
Okay.
for having the show.
We'll see you guys later. Have a good night.
Good night.
See ya.
Night.